Good evening and welcome to this executive meeting of Burnley Borough Council on the 15th of February 2021. Executive members in attendance are Councillor Townsend, Councillor Pate, Councillor Hammond, Councillor Graham, Councillor Harbour and Councillor Raja. Also observing the meeting are Councillor Margaret Lishman and Councillor Hosker. Council officers in attendance are Mick Cartledge, the Chief Executive, Lutma Patel, Chief Operating Officer, Kate Ingram, Head of Economy and Growth, and Howard Hamilton-Smith, Head of Finance and Property. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, and welcome to this evening's meeting of the Executive. Item number 1 on the agenda is apologies for absence. All executive members are in attendance, so there are no apologies this evening. Item number 2, to approve as a correct record the minutes of the meeting held on the 8th of December 2020. I will move those minutes. Councillor Pate, will you please second those minutes?
Second those minutes, Chair.
Thank you. If there is no dissent, we will approve those minutes. Thank you. Those minutes are approved. Item number 3, noting of individual executive member decisions. That item is for noting only. So we will move on to item number 4. Additional items of business. Eric, there is one item. Would you please introduce that item?
Thank you, Chair. The additional item of business relates to additional restrictions grant. This has been published on the Council's website alongside a notice which stated that the reason for urgency is to enable the Council to respond quickly to support businesses affected by the COVID-19 pandemic and subsequent restrictions.
Thank you very much. I've reviewed the report and the reasons, and I do accept that this item does need adding to the agenda tonight. So we will take that item at number 17A during the public items. Thank you. Item number 5, are there any declarations of interest? No, thank you. Item number 6, exclusion of the public. Can I have somebody who will second as per the agenda, please?
As per agenda.
Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Pate. Item number 7, right to speak. Are there any speakers this evening?
None received, Chair.
Thank you very much. Item number 9 on the agenda, constitutional reporting, minutes and public reports of urgent officer delegated executive decisions. There are 5 decisions that we need to note. I think all executive members in attendance duly note those decisions. So we move to item number 10, revenue budget monitoring 2020-21 quarter 3. Howard, can you please introduce?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to report the forecast outturn position for the year as at the 31st of December 2020. The executive is asked to note a projected net overspend of 49,000 after taking into account an estimated 1.04 million from the sales fees and charges income compensation scheme. The executive is also asked to note that the estimated collection fund deficit of 1.1 million will be spread over the next 3 financial years and won't impact on the current financial year. And they will also be partially offset with a 75% collection fund income compensation scheme. The executive is asked to seek approval from full council for a revised net budget of 15.693 million and a net transfer to reserves of 1.334 million. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Graham.
Thank you, Chair. I have nothing further to add to the report. The report was also seen by Scrutiny Committee last week and they had no comments to make either. So I move the report.
Thank you, Councillor Graham. I'll second the report. Just a couple of things that I took of note from the report. I think it's quite clear that we're certainly living with COVID for a lot longer than this financial year. certainly when we see the impacts on council tax and business rates, that we can basically repay those deficits over the next 3 years. But we need to bear that in mind in everything that we're doing going forward in terms of living with COVID, and we know it's certainly not over with yet. And I do note that we've not had all of our lost income through this year yet. I think we've had up to the lost income that's been agreed with government up to August, I think it is. So we're still awaiting other tranches of payments. So no guarantee that we're going to get everything that we've assumed. So, and again, we need to take that into account as we move forward on other decisions, difficult decisions that we have to make going forward. So I'll second that report. Any member? No? Okay.
Yeah.
If there's no dissent, we will approve that report. Thank you. That report is approved. Item number 11, capital budget monitoring 2020-21, quarter 3. Howard.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, the purpose of this report is to provide an update on the capital expenditure and resources position as at the 31st of December 2020. The Executive is asked to recommend to full Council a revised capital budget and financing of 14.477 million, which is a decrease of 2.9 million. So the main reason for the reduction is the reprofile of the budgets for 2 schemes into the next financial year. And that's for the North West Burnley Growth Corridor of 1.4 million and the Building Infrastructure Works Fund of 1.4 million. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Howard. Councillor Graham.
Thank you, Chair. Again, I have nothing to add to this report. It's pretty obvious that the slippage is mostly due to delays related to COVID, but will be picked up in next year's capital programme. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Sorry, I moved the report.
Thank you, Councillor Graham. I will second that report. Any member? No? Okay. If there's no dissent to that report, the report. Thank you. The report is approved. Item number 12, strategic plan for 2021. Mick?
Thanks, Chair. It's at this time when we do our annual review of the strategic plan, aligning it with our budget. It probably comes as no surprise that probably the key changes to the strategic plan are COVID related, and you'll see within the strategic plan the inclusion of delivery of our economic recovery plan and our community recovery plan. Probably the other key addition is one to protect the council's heritage assets, and that's now included in the strategic plan. They're probably the major changes, and the Exec are recommended to endorse and approve the strategic plan at council.
Okay, thank you, Mick. I'll move this report and the strategic plan, but just in terms of saying a few words about it, obviously COVID is central to everything that's going on at the moment, but we need to move on from COVID as we go through the next financial year. But I'm pleased to see that the plan does take due recognition of the 2 large pieces of work that was undertaken by the previous executive and ourselves in terms of the COVID community recovery plan and the economic recovery plan, both of which have been approved and both of which have had funding approved to get them underway. So it's pleasing to see that. I think it's also important to note that there is, although our green credentials were embedded within the strategic reports over the last couple of years and going further back, they've been further strengthened this year. So it's, I think everybody's incumbent and driven towards the council playing its part towards preventing climate change by reducing our carbon footprint, and that is embedded within the report and strengthened from previous years. And for the first time, we've actually made clear statements around heritage. the council has shown its credentials towards heritage in terms of its renovations of the town hall and the work that will be going on at Townley over the next few years. So it's only right that we recognise that within our strategic plan and embed it within our work and our reporting to council and the people of the town. There's a couple of items that have actually come out from the previous strategic plan, but I just want to just make it clear that it's not for any underhand reasons or anything like that. One is the review of the structure of the council. I think for the last couple of years we have looked through the committees. The structure of the council was up for debate through our member structures working group. We didn't reach any firm conclusions, certainly, that there was any appetite for the upheaval of moving to like committee structures and things like that. But I just want to put on record that we as an executive and me as a leader will always remain open to having discussions about any structures that may improve the operation of this council. And, you know, we'll always live up to that. In addition, the references to specific cross-party working groups have been removed. But again, I want to make it clear, this doesn't mean we are against having cross-party working groups. Absolutely to the contrary. I think, you know, Scrutiny do a good job in terms of pulling cross-party working groups together on the auspices of that committee. And if there is a need to have cross-party working groups outside of that structure, again, we certainly remain open to doing that. Obviously, any suggestions that come forward, we'd look at with an open mind. And so I don't want anybody to think that we've taken them out of the strategic plan for any specific reason, you know, that is about dogma or anything like that. It's certainly not the case. And finally, I'd like to propose an amendment to one of the strategic objectives, PL3 under places. There was some comments at Scrutiny last week around empty homes and perhaps the lack of emphasis in the strategic plan. So I propose that PL3 reads as such going forward. We will work with partners to improve quality and choice in the borough's housing stock and reduce the blight of empty properties. So just add empty properties into PL3 as making sure that both council and the residents of the town realise how important we place on reducing the blight of empty properties. So I will move the report. Councillor Pate, will you please second the report?
Second the report, Chair.
Thank you. Any member?
Is that as amended, Chair?
Oh, sorry, I will
It's
move
amended.
the report as amended.
Yeah.
And Councillor Pate, can you please move the report as amended?
As amended, Chair.
Thank you. Any member?
No, Chair, none are requesting to speak.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move to the vote. If I don't hear any dissent, then the strategic plan will go forwards. We'll have the recommendation of this executive to go to full council. Thank you. The report is approved. Item number 13, medium-term financial strategy 2022-23 to 25-26, including the reserve strategy. Howard?
Thank you, Chair. The medium-term financial strategy has been updated to cover the period 2022 to 2026, and it's in place to ensure that resources are aligned to the strategic and business objectives of the council. So the strategy has been developed using the latest information available and should be read in conjunction with the Revenue Budget 21-22 report, which is on the agenda. The executive have asked to recommend to full council approval of the updated medium-term financial strategy, together with the appended reserve strategy. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Graham.
Thank you, Chair. I will move this report. Just to note that, again, we've mentioned COVID and the medium-term financial strategy cannot not mention the fact that we are entering into a period of recession and recovery following the pandemic. Even as we all get excited about being able to go out and meet friends again, financially, it's going to be quite a hard slog to get through the next few years. So I move the report, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Graham. I'll second the report. I think the other thing that strikes me as you read the medium-term financial strategy is the great deal of uncertainty going forward. You know, very much references to the fair funding review that's now been postponed for 2 years. The business rates picture going forward extremely uncertain, and we rely more and more on our business rates take every year to be able to fund our ongoing services. I think the other thing I'd just like to say at this moment in time is how extremely disappointing it is that once again Burnley's been badly treated in terms of the government settlement. When you look at the England average for the increase in spending power of 4.5%, and yet Burnley, once again, one of the most deprived communities in the UK, gets 2.6%. And of that 2.6%, the government was assuming that we'd automatically put council tax up by 1.99% as part of that 2.6. It just shows in terms of how badly Burnley is treated, and just shows who's responsible for any increases in council tax that's recovered, that's maybe required going forward. Basically, passing the buck down to hard-pressed communities to fund the local services, especially in light of all the lost income and COVID situation. If we'd have got the England average next year, it would have been an extra £280,000 that we'd have been looking at in our budget for next year. That's the equivalent of 2% increase in council tax. But I think the MTF says it all in terms of the uncertainty going forward, and that's what we've got to bear in mind as we make future decisions regarding our budgets and how we fund local services. Okay, so I will second the report. Any member?
No, Chair.
No, thank you. Okay, we'll go to the vote. If I hear no dissent, then we will approve that report. Okay, thank you. That report is approved. Item number 14, revenue budget 2021-22, including savings proposals. Howard?
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to recommend to full council set a balanced budget for the 2021-22 financial year and to calculate the council tax requirement for that year. The executive is asked to recommend to full council to endorse the approach adopted to set a council tax requirement of 7.266 million and a net budget requirement of 15.416 million. The executive is also asked to recommend to full council a 1.99% council tax increase, approving a Band D council tax figure of £312.28 for the next financial year. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Howard. Councillor Graham.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this report will be dealt with at full council, and it's a complex report which sets out our proposals for the next financial year. At Scrutiny Committee last week, there were one or two really excellent comments. Councillor Gordon Lishman said that we should put an emphasis on projects which create jobs, and that we should support business hardship and support businesses coming out of the coronavirus lockdowns. We will be doing that. The report sets out very clearly the assistance that we're going to give to both communities and to the business community through the Recovery Board. So I'd like to move this report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Graham. I think it's worth saying as I second this report, nobody ever wants to put council tax up, but I think as we've highlighted, when we look at Q3 monitoring of revenue and we look at the medium-term financial strategy going forward, that the financial outlook is extremely uncertain, and it's essential that whilst we're still in COVID, that we have the resources available to make sure that we can fund our local services. So the recommendation of a 1.99% increase, which is just over £4 for a Band A property, is not something we do lightly, but we feel is essential as we take the borough forward. In setting the budget, though, I think it's worth noting, you know, the growth items, a couple of growth items that we do have in there, which is a £500,000 hardship fund for businesses. Whatever we do as we go forward, and bearing in mind what Scrutiny said last week in terms of jobs, it's essential that we do absolutely everything we possibly can to protect as many jobs going forward, and that's what that hardship fund is for. And as well, we've always got to be focused on what really matters to people in their day-to-day lives and what they see outside their front doors every day. And that's why the £50,000 additional funding for street scene enforcement and cleanups, etc., a flexible fund that we can use throughout next year, is important to make sure that we can keep on top of people's neighbourhoods. So whilst it's extremely difficult to raise council tax, we believe it is the right decision to make, bearing in mind the situation that we face going forward. But we've also built some funding in there for the right things going forward, jobs and clean streets. And I second the report. Can any member wish to speak?
No requests received, Chair.
Thank you very much. We'll go to the vote. If there's no dissent, we will accept that report and obviously recommend it as an executive to full council. Okay, thank you. That report is approved. Item number 15, Capital Budget 2021-22 and Capital Investment Programme 2021 to 26. Howard?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to recommend approval of the 2021-22 capital budget. The executive is asked to recommend to full council to approve a capital budget of 18.792 million for 2021-22 as detailed in Appendix 1, and approve the release of the capital scheme budgets. The executive is also asked to recommend that full council approve the capital strategy for 2021-26 contained in Appendix 4, and to note the capital investment programme for the same period and the position on capital resources. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Howard. Councillor Graham.
Thank you, Chair. This report, as Howard has said, sets out the budget for the next financial year for the capital programme. The strategy is the important part of it to my mind, because it tells us which direction is important to us. It lines up with the strategic plan and the council's aims for the next year and the next few years. So I'm happy to move this report, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Graham. I will second that report. Any member?
No requests received, Chair.
Thank you very much. We'll go to the vote. Any dissent to this report? No dissent received, therefore the report is approved. Thank you. Item number 16, Treasury Management Strategy 2021-22 and Prudential Treasury Indicators. Howard.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to outline the Treasury Management Strategy for 2021-22 and the prudential indicators for the financial years 2021 to 24. The Treasury Management Strategy has been updated to reflect the Council's capital plans, the MRP policy and the investment strategy. The Executive is asked to recommend to full Council approval of the Treasury Management Strategy for 21-22, the Prudential and Treasury Indicators for 21-24, the list of counterparties and the Council's MRP statement for 21-22. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Graham.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, as Howard said, he didn't mention the fact that one of the counterparties, one of the things that we're doing through the Treasury Management Report and through our decision made recently is to invest or help Burnley College invest in the future of the college for in the town. So that's in there as well. So it's a longer term strategy, and it's really important to make sure, as I said before, that things are aligned. So there were no comments from Scrutiny Committee when it went to Scrutiny Committee last week. So I move the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Graham. I'd just like to, in seconding the report, congratulate the Treasury Management team on being able to keep on top of all the massive fluctuations that have gone on throughout the last financial year, and make sure that basically we've kept ourselves within all the indicators and protocols that we have. And I think the Treasury Management Strategy has stood us in good stead over a number of years. It does get amended slightly over the years, but I think it certainly stood us in good stead, and congratulations to everybody within that team. So the report is moved and seconded. Any member?
There are no requests, Chair.
Thank you. Move to the vote. Unless I hear dissent, the report will be approved. No, okay. Item 16, Treasury Management Strategy, is approved to go to full council. Item number 17, Localism Act 2011, Pay Policy Statement 21-22. Luqman.
Thank you, Chair. Members will be familiar with the requirement to publish a pay policy statement annually before the end of March in every year. Members are asked to approve the report and the pay policy statement, which is attached to the report. Also note the Council's gender pay gap, which is at Appendix H. Just before I open the discussion up to members, just like to draw members' attention to an important development in this in relation to the exit cap, which was announced by virtue of a mandatory HM Treasury direction on the 12th of Feb, which in a nutshell removes the £95,000 cap, which is set out in paragraph 10 of the report. Further details will be announced by the Treasury in due course, but at this moment in time, the pay cap has been disapplied. Thank you, members.
Thank you very much, Luqman. Councillor Graham.
Thank you, Chair. I have nothing further to add to this, so I would like to move the report.
Thank you, Councillor Graham. Just a couple of points from myself. I know it's probably not covered within the pay policy statement, but I think I've got to say it somewhere that in terms of pay policy and the local authorities and councils and the staff, I think it's extremely disappointing, to say the least, that going forward into 21-22, the staff are having to face a pay freeze after all the fantastic work they've done over the last 12 months. Helping the town through COVID, and I think it's quite poor that we can't reward our staff in a way that's reflected in the pay packets. The other thing I think is, and I think I'm right in saying, but I'm sure an officer will correct me if I'm wrong, that we're not obliged to actually present a gender pay gap anymore within our documents, but we absolutely insisted that we should continue to do that, because our organisation has shrunk below a certain level. I think it might be 250 staff or maybe 200. I'm not quite sure of the number. But we aren't obliged, once you fall below a certain number, to actually publish the gender pay gap. But we continue to do that. And I think it's only right that we do that and continue to ensure that we're absolutely being as fair as we possibly can in all respects, in all types of pay policy. So long may that continue. Thank you. So I'll second the report. Any member?
Chair, did you want to amend the recommendations at all regarding paragraph 10, or just bring it to the attention of members?
I believe we should be amending it in accordance with paragraph 10, but Councillor Graham,
Yeah.
mover of the motion, can you comment, please?
Yes. I don't actually believe that it makes any difference. Let me just find the relevant note. No, it doesn't make any difference to the recommendation at all. We're just approving the report. So it's just an amended paragraph. Paragraph 10 and paragraph 34 need amending slightly.
Okay. Sorry, can just somebody help me out procedurally here when we say amended slightly?
It can be done either way. Members can note the mandatory HM Treasury direction of 12 February 2021 or not. It didn't ask members to approve the exit cap because that would have been law. So members don't have a choice in relation to that. So you can either note it or not. It's entirely up to members.
What's your view, Sue? Note it?
Note it.
Okay, I'll second the noting. Any member?
No request received, Chair.
Thank you. We'll move to the vote. Unless there's dissent, we will approve. No dissent. Thank you. The Localism Act and Pay Policy Statement is approved. Right, we're at item number 17A now, the additional item of business, additional restrictions grant. Kate, can you take this, please?
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to seek approval to amend and expand the criteria for the additional restrictions grant scheme. So the additional restrictions grant scheme, or the ARG, is funding that we have been given by government to support businesses who are not eligible for the government's main support scheme, the local restrictions support gap grant, which is aimed at businesses who have had to close due to the national restrictions. So we initially approved a scheme on the 13th of November last year, following the lockdown that started on the 5th of November, and then that scheme was amended on the 8th of January to reflect the national lockdown that came into place on the 31st of December. So we've then been running the scheme now for a few more weeks from that, and we realised that we need to expand the scope of the scheme to enable us to support a number of other businesses. So the first recommendation are the amendments to the eligibility criteria. So that will broaden the scope of the businesses that are able to apply and get some support. The second recommendation is for a one-off top-up grant to nightclubs. There are about 6 such businesses in the borough, and they have had to remain closed since March 2020. And if I note, there is a typo in the report at paragraph 5, and it says March 2010. That should say March 2020. But they haven't received the same level of grant support from the government as wet-led pubs. So that's pubs that don't sell a substantial meal. So what this one-off top-up grant will do is put them on on a par, give them parity with those wet-led pubs, and hopefully enable them to sustain a prolonged period of closure. The third recommendation is regarding a hardship scheme. So early in January, we set up, using the ARG money, a hardship grant, which was really aimed at larger businesses that are substantial employers that make quite big investments in the borough that might be facing particular hardships. What we did when we set that up, we excluded businesses who'd had any existing support, and I think what we're recommending now is that criteria is amended to enable businesses that have received what are relatively small amounts of money in proportion to the size of their business to be eligible for the hardship scheme. Fourthly, we're asking the exec to authorise that we apply a closing date for these grants of the Friday the 26th of February. So far we've run it on an open basis, and we've just continually accepted grants, but what we want to do is have a closing date at the end of February, and then we can make an assessment of how much money we've committed, how much money we've got left, and also review the criteria in light of the reopening roadmap that we're expecting government to set out early next week. Fifthly, we're seeking authority to the executive to delegate authority to myself, Strategic Head of Economy and Growth, and Head of Finance and Property to determine grant applications of up to £3,000 that fall out of the side of the current criteria. We can't always predict the businesses and the kinds of cases that are going to come forward, and that would give us some flexibility to do that, and we do that in consultation with the exec member for Economy and Growth. And then finally, recommendation F, if I could ask that recommendation is amended so that it reads that it delegates authority to the Strategic Head of Economy and Growth in consultation with the exec member for Economy and Growth to agree future changes to the ARG scheme, which are not key decisions.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Kate. That's very comprehensive. Thank you. Councillor Roger.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'd be happy to move this report as amended by the officers and some of the suggestions that have been made. So I'd be more than happy to move this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Roger. Just a couple of words on this, really, because obviously this additional restrictions grant has been a lifeline for many of those like unsung businesses that fell below the radar from government schemes. And although it seems like, I think this is probably about the third time we've changed it, but I think that's right, because there's never been a scheme like it in the past. We've had to be flexible and adaptable to changing circumstances to make sure that we covered as many of these hard-pressed businesses as we possibly can. And I think, reference was made there to nightclubs. We can't forget that the nighttime economy in Burnley has been basically shut for 12 months. When we look at Hamilton Street and that central core of the nighttime economy, basically nothing going on for 12 months. So anything we can do to try and keep those businesses and nightclubs alive until they can actually reopen, extremely important. I must just say as well, I don't think the governments have helped us a great deal in terms of being able to have a comprehensive and flexible additional restrictions grant. I think we've done great stuff in trying circumstances, because government guidelines have certainly been, let's just say, challenging in terms of their speed at coming out and how we could react to businesses and their complexity. So I'd just say congratulations to the team, both in finance and economy and growth, in terms of trying to make something out of this and provide us with a scheme that is providing a level of support to businesses that wouldn't otherwise have got it across the town. So thanks for that. So the report is moved and seconded. Any member?
No, Chair, no requests.
Okay, we'll go to the vote. If there's no dissent, we'll approve that item 17A, the additional restrictions grant report. Okay, no dissent received, so that report is approved. So we're at item number 18, exclusion of the public. I will move that. Councillor Pate, can you just second exclusion of the public for me, please?
Second that, Chair.
Thank you very much. Unless I hear dissent, that will be approved. That is approved. Can we just close the live stream, Chris, please?
Yes, Chair. Paul, can you confirm when the private part of the meeting card is up, please?